She stepped onto the bridge to end her life. But when a car plunged into the river below, her final moment became someone else's salvation. And the night she saved a stranger who would change everything. A girl ready to die drags a stranger from a sinking car. By sunrise, she's gone, 8 years later. He's a billionaire haunted by a face he can't forget. And she's hiding the secret that could ruin them both. The rain had no mercy that night. It slashed sideways through the glow of the city lights, drumming against the steel rails of the old West Bridge like fingers impatient to be heard. Lina Santos stood there, soaked to the bone, her trembling hands gripping the cold railing. The water below churned black and merciless, whispering promises of peace she hadn't felt in years. Her reflection, distorted in the swirling current, stared back, a ghost with swollen eyes and smeared mascara. She'd spent years hiding behind hoodies and polite smiles, pretending not to hear the whispers. If only she'd lose weight. She has such a pretty face. Those words had carved themselves deep into her ribs, until she believed her worth weighed exactly as much as the number on a scale. She whispered into the storm. I'm tired. I'm just so tired. The wind carried her confession away like a secret it didn't want to keep. Behind her, the world didn't stop. Cars rushed across the bridge, their lights blurring into streaks of gold and red. Nobody noticed her, not the girl on the edge, not the trembling breath before the jump. Lina closed her eyes. Maybe tomorrow they'll remember me for a day or two. Maybe that's enough. Then a flash of headlights, a screech, a violent crash that shattered the night. A car spun out of control, breaking the guardrail and plunging into the freezing water below. Her heart leapt. Instinct replaced despair. Without thinking, Lina screamed and jumped. The cold tore through her like knives. But she fought the current, clawing toward the sinking car. Through the murky water, she saw a man's hand against the glass. His eyes, wide, terrified, met hers. She found strength she didn't know she had. Her fingers found the door handle. It wouldn't budge. She screamed underwater, bubbles rushing past her lips. One desperate kick, then another, and the window cracked open. She reached in, grabbed his arm, and pulled with everything she had. When they broke the surface, he gasped for air and clung to her, coughing, shaking. She dragged him toward the shore, collapsing beside him as sirens wailed in the distance. He turned his head slowly, blinking rain from his lashes, even half-conscious. He looked powerful, sharp jawline, tailored suit ruined by mud and water. But his voice trembled. You saved me. Lina tried to speak, but her throat burned. Guess, we're both alive, she muttered with a bitter half-laugh before fainting in the mud. Before we begin. If stories like this speak to your heart, stories about love, loss, and the quiet strength it takes to heal, take a moment to subscribe every day. We share another tale that reminds you. Love always finds its way home, hours later. The rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor pulled her from darkness. She blinked up at sterile white lights. A nurse smiled kindly. You're a hero, Miss Santos. You saved that man's life. Hero. She echoed weakly. The word didn't fit. She'd wanted to die. Heroes didn't jump to escape. They jumped to save, across the room. Separated by a thin curtain, she heard a man's deep voice. Calm, confident, even after nearly drowning. I want to know her name, he said. Find her before she leaves. Lina froze. She didn't want him to see her. Not like this, not swollen, barefaced, exposed. She pressed the call button, muttering to the nurse. Please, I need to go, I just need to go. Minutes later, she slipped out quietly, clutching her wet bag, shoes squeaking against the polished floor. Across the hospital, Ethan Cole, the CEO of Cole Enterprises, sat on the bed, chest bandaged, 4 in his arm, eyes still dazed from the accident. He couldn't explain it, but something about the woman who had pulled him from the river haunted him. He remembered her trembling voice, the weight of her arm under his, the warmth of her presence in the freezing dark. His driver entered. Sir, the police need a statement. Later, Ethan said quietly. Did you find her? The driver shook his head. No ID, no address. She left before we could get a name. Ethan's gaze drifted to the rain-slick window. She looked so broken, he thought. And yet, she saved me. He didn't realize that in saving him, she had unknowingly saved herself too. Later that night, Lina sat on the bus home, clutching the hospital discharge papers. The city blurred outside her window. Her mind replayed the moment. The eyes of the man she'd pulled from the river. There'd been something raw in them. Something human, for the first time in months. She felt alive. Maybe she hadn't jumped to die. Maybe she'd jumped to begin again. The rain slowed. The bus turned a corner. And somewhere in the distance, Ethan Cole looked out of his penthouse window at the same storm, feeling something stir in his chest he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Have you ever had a moment that changed everything when you least expected it? Share your story in the comments. Someone might need to hear it today. Rain still painted the city in silver streaks when Ethan walked out of the hospital the next evening. His driver held an umbrella, but he waved it off, letting the water soak through his hair and shirt. He didn't care about the headlines waiting for him. CEO nearly drowns after mysterious car accident. He cared about the woman who vanished before he could say thank you. That night, he returned to the bridge. It was quieter now. The hum of passing cars like whispers in a cathedral. He stood at the same spot she had, his eyes searching the dark water below. "Who are you?" he murmured. "And why can't I stop thinking about you?" Across town, Lina sat in her tiny apartment, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of detergent and rain. Her phone buzzed with messages she ignored. Co-workers from the diner sent blurry photos of her hero moment that had already gone viral. She sighed, dropping the phone. "Hero," she repeated under her breath. If only they knew. She had saved someone, yes, but she still didn't know how to save herself. Her apartment door buzzed suddenly. A deep voice called, "Miss Lina Santos." She froze. No one ever visited, opening the door cautiously. She saw a tall man in a black suit holding a bouquet of white lily. "I'm from Cole Enterprises," he said with a polite bow. "Mr. Cole would like to thank you personally." Lina's first instinct was panic. "No, please, I don't need anything." But before she could close the door, another voice spoke softly from the hallway. "Then at least let me say thank you myself." Ethan stood there, no longer the image of corporate perfection. His sleeves were rolled up, his expression raw, tired but sincere. For a long moment, neither spoke. He finally said, "You jumped in for a stranger. People don't do that anymore." Lina's eyes flicked away. "People don't usually crash into rivers either." He laughed. A quiet, broken laugh that filled the room with warmth. To say, they ended up at a small cafe near her building. The air smelled of coffee and rain-damp wool. Ethan insisted on ordering for both of them. Black coffee for him, hot chocolate for her. When the drinks came, he studied her over the rim of his cup. She fidgeted under his gaze, tugging at her sleeves as if to hide herself. "You saved me," he said again. "You don't have to keep saying that." "I do," he said quietly, "because I don't think anyone's ever done that before." Silence settled between them. Outside, the rain softened to a mist. Finally, he asked, "Why were you on that bridge?" Lina's grip tightened on her mug. Wrong place. Wrong time. His eyes didn't move. "I don't believe that," she swallowed. "You shouldn't ask questions you don't want the answers to." Ethan nodded slowly, respect flickering in his gaze. "Fair enough, then." Softer. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you were there." She looked up, startled by the warmth in his tone. For a heartbeat. The noise of the cafe faded. Hours passed. Conversation flowed easier than either expected. He told her about his company, how success had become a cage. She told him about losing her father, her struggles, her dreams of being invisible in a world obsessed with perfection. When she laughed, it surprised even her. It wasn't a pretty laugh. It was real, rough around the edges, and honest, "See?" Ethan said, smiling faintly. "There's light in you, even if you don't see it." She rolled her eyes, but her heart stuttered at the words. Outside, the rain finally stopped. They walked together toward her street, their shoulders brushing, the air between them humming with unspoken connection. At her building, she turned to him. "You should go. You're well." "You. And you're you," he said, stepping closer. Something in his voice, gentle, curious, vulnerable, unraveled her. He lifted a hand hesitantly, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "If I promise not to crash any more cars," he whispered, "will you promise not to jump off any more bridges?" Her lips parted, trembling. I'll try, he smiled. Good. I'd like to think we're even now. Even. You saved my life. Maybe I can help you remember yours, the night deepened. One glass of wine turned into two. The laughter. The closeness. It felt like a dream neither wanted to end. When he kissed her, it wasn't perfect. It was hesitant, searching, as if both were afraid to believe it was real. And when they finally lay in each other's arms, it wasn't about lust. It was about two souls desperate to feel something that didn't hurt. Lina's last thought before sleep claimed her was a whisper she didn't dare speak aloud. Please don't let this be another goodbye morning. Sunlight spilled through the blinds, the sheets beside her were cold. Ethan was gone. A note lay on the nightstand. Thank you for saving me, E. Her heart clenched. It was too neat. Too simple. Reality crashed back like the tide. He's rich, you're not, you are a moment, not a memory. She pressed the note to her chest, and let the tears come quietly. Across town, Ethan sat in his penthouse, staring at the same sunrise. The taste of her still lingered in his memory. The way she'd said his name like she was afraid it might vanish. He told himself to forget, to move on. But a voice whispered in the back of his mind. You don't walk away from the person who saves your soul. Have you ever met someone who made you feel seen for the first time? Tell me in the comments, maybe your story will remind someone they're worth seeing too. Lina hadn't planned to see him again. After that night, she went back to the diner. Back to her quiet life of coffee stains and clocking in late shifts. For a while, she convinced herself it had been a dream. One night with a stranger she'd never meet again. But dreams don't come with consequences. 2 months later, she sat in a clinic, staring at the pregnancy test in her shaking hands. 2 lines? Her chest hollowed out. She laughed, a broken, disbelieving sound. You've got to be kidding me. Weeks blurred together. Every morning sickness, every tear, every lonely walk home reminded her that she was on her own. She never told Ethan. She didn't even know how. What would she say? Hey, remember that night you almost drowned and I saved you? Then we accidentally made a baby. No. He was rich, powerful, untouchable. And she was the overweight waitress from the bridge. Her mother's reaction was brutal. You've shamed this family enough, she spat. First you tried to kill yourself. Now you bring a bastard into the world. Lina packed her bags that night and never looked back. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan buried himself in work. The press adored his comeback story. CEO saved by mystery woman. He smiled for cameras, shook hands with investors, and gave interviews where he spoke about gratitude and fate. But behind closed doors, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her trembling smile, her honesty, her courage. He asked his assistant to find her. The woman from the bridge, Lina Santos. She saved me. But the trail went cold. The hospital records were incomplete. And she had disappeared without a trace. For weeks, he checked cafes, browsed social media, even drove by the bridge again. Nothing. Finally, he gave up, convincing himself it was for the best. It was just one night, he told his reflection. She's probably forgotten me. But deep down, he knew that was a lie. 9 months later, Lina gave birth to a baby boy. The nurse placed him on her chest, small and red-faced, his eyes blinking open for the first time. And in that instant, she saw him. Those eyes, sharp, grey-blue, intense, just like his father's. Her throat tightened. Hey there, Noah, she whispered. Guess it's just you and me, okay? The nurse smiled softly. No father. Lina shook her head. He doesn't need one. But even as she said it, she felt the sting of the lie. The years passed slowly, but surely Lina worked 3 jobs. Waitress, temp secretary, delivery clerk, anything to keep them afloat. Nights were long, rent was late. But Noah made it all worth it. He was curious, kind, full of laughter. Everything she never believed she could create. When he turned 5, she caught him staring at a photo of a skyscraper in her magazine. Mommy, he asked, can people really build things that touch the sky? They can, she said, smiling faintly. Some even forget how to look down, but even as Noah grew, Lina carried a constant ache, a reminder of the night that changed her life. Every time he smiled, she saw Ethan. Every time she tucked him into bed, she whispered silent prayers that their paths would never cross again. Because if Ethan found out, what then? He'd take one look at her life. The cramped apartment, the small boy with his eyes. And feel nothing but pity. She couldn't survive that again. Meanwhile, in Ethan's world, things began to crumble. He had built his empire on control. Every detail precise, every risk calculated. But after that night, control no longer satisfied him. He'd had relationships, brief, polished, hollow. None of them touched him the way Lina had in those few stolen hours. One evening, his mother, Eleanor Cole, cornered him during a gala. "You're 33. Ethan, you need a wife, an heir, the board expects it." "I'm not ready," he said curtly. "You've been saying that for 8 years. Her tone sharpened. "I've already arranged meetings. You will choose someone respectable this time." He smiled tightly. But his chest felt hollow. Respectable. That word again. A cage dressed as a compliment. Lina's resistance hardened into survival. She learned to patch broken shoes, to stretch $1, to smile for Noah even when she wanted to cry. She stopped looking in mirrors. But one morning, something inside her shifted. She'd lost her job at the diner, replaced by a younger girl who fit the brand. She went home that day, stared at the fridge full of bills and whispered, "Enough." That night, she ran until her lungs burned. The next morning, she ran again. 1 week became a month. 1 month became a year. By the time Noah turned 8, the woman in the mirror was unrecognizable. The extra weight was gone. But the pain wasn't. Still, she smiled for him. Always for him, Ethan, now older and wearier, still carried the echo of her laugh in his memory. Sometimes, in the silence between meetings, he'd catch himself wondering, did she survive? Did she ever forgive herself for that night on the bridge? He didn't know that somewhere across the city, she was thinking the same thing about him. Have you ever let someone go because you thought you weren't enough for them? Share your thoughts below. Your story might remind someone that enough is already who they are. The morning sunlight spilled through the glass windows of Lumen, the luxury fashion company that had quickly become one of the city's most influential brands. The office buzzed with life, designers, interns, executives, all moving under the same invisible pulse of pressure and ambition. Lina adjusted her blazer and straightened the ID badge around her neck. Lina Santos, marketing assistant. 8 years had passed, but every day still felt like she was proving she deserved to be there. Her reflection in the elevator doors looked nothing like the girl who once stood on that bridge. Her body was lean, her eyes clearer, her posture unshaken. But beneath the armor of confidence, a quiet fear still whispered, "Don't fall. Don't be seen too closely." "Morning, Lina." Talia's bright voice cut through her thoughts. Her old high school friend turned manager strutted in, coffee in hand, smile painted and sharp. "Morning," Lina replied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Talia linked arms with her. "Big day. The CEO's coming to review the campaign. He's ruthless. If he doesn't like our pitch, it's over for everyone, especially you." Lina's stomach tightened. Good to know. She didn't notice the glint in Talia's eye. The envy she'd carried ever since Lina began outshining her. Meanwhile, at the top floor of Cole Enterprises, Ethan stared out over the skyline, adjusting his tie as his assistant briefed him. "Sir, your mother wants confirmation for next week's engagement dinner." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Tell her I'm busy. You've been busy for 3 years. I'll stay busy for 30 more. He turned away. Voice low. "Schedule my visit to Lumen. If the marketing branch fails, I want to know why." The moment his black car pulled up outside the Lumen building, the air in the office changed. Whispered rumors spread like wildfire. "He's here, the Ethan Cole? The CEO himself." Lina froze when she heard his name, Cole. It tugged at something inside her. A familiar chill, a memory she couldn't place. When he stepped into the conference room, time seemed to fold. He looked exactly as she remembered. Sharp suit, colder eyes. The kind of presence that made people straighten unconsciously. But to him, the woman standing at the end of the table was a shock that stole his breath. He knew her. He knew her. Her hair was shorter. Her body changed. Her confidence different. But her eyes. Those eyes that once looked at him through rain and tears. He could never forget them. Lina, however, didn't flinch to her. He was just another powerful man evaluating her work. "Mr. Cole," Talia said smoothly. This is Lina Santos, my assistant. She walk you through the campaign visuals. Ethan's gaze lingered on her. Santos? He repeated softly. Yes, Lina replied, her tone even. It's an honor to have you here. Her voice, that gentle, trembling lilt, hit him like a memory wrapped in lightning. As she presented, Ethan barely heard the words. He studied every movement, every inflection, searching for confirmation, but she gave him nothing. When the meeting ended, he spoke quietly to her. Miss Santos, a word. Talia's smirk faded. Lina hesitated, then nodded. In his private office, silence pressed heavy. Ethan's voice dropped lower. Have we met before? Her heart stuttered. I don't think so, sir. He tilted his head. You're sure? Yes, he smiled faintly, though his eyes betrayed disbelief. Funny, you look familiar. She forced a polite smile. I just have one of those faces. He let it go. For now, you did good work today. Thank you. Mr. Cole, as she turned to leave, he said softly, if you ever need anything at all, my door's open. Her hand paused on the doorknob, the same words he'd once said to her before everything fell apart. She nodded without turning. Thank you, sir. That night, Lina came home to Noah's laughter echoing from their small living room. He sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing spaceships with crayons. She crouched beside him. What's that, champ? A rocket, he said proudly. It's going to the stars, she smiled, brushing his hair back and froze. He looked more like Ethan every day. The same eyes, the same half smile, her chest tightened. Mommy just has to be careful, okay? She whispered, kissing his forehead. The next morning, disaster struck. Talia called Lina into her office. Tone icy. Close the door, Lina did. Talia leaned back, folding her arms. You didn't tell me you used to work at a diner, or that you had a kid. HR doesn't like secrets. Lina's face drained. What are you talking about? Talia smirked. I did some digging. Your file's messy. A single mom. No college degree. Fake address history. Doesn't look good for someone in marketing. You went through my records? Please, I'm protecting the company, Talia said sweetly. But if the CEO found out, you'd be gone. Later that afternoon, Ethan walked past her office just as he saw Lina sitting frozen, eyes red, Talia standing over her like a vulture. Is there a problem? Ethan's voice cut through the air. Talia stiffened. No, sir. Just a minor performance review. Ethan's eyes locked on Lina's. Something inside him tightened. Miss Santos, come with me. In the elevator. Silence burned between them. Finally, he said. You don't belong in that chair. You belong higher. Her throat closed. You don't even know me. He looked at her then. Really looked. Maybe I do. That night, as rain began to fall again, Ethan stood at his window replaying every second. Her voice, her eyes, her name, Lina Santos. The realization hit him like a wave. It's her. The woman from the bridge. The one who saved him. The one he lost. And the question that haunted him most. Why did she pretend not to know me? Would you tell the truth if it meant risking everything you've rebuilt? Comment below. Honesty can heal or destroy, depending on when it's spoken. Perfect. Rain poured like silver threads across the glass walls of Ethan's penthouse office. The city lights blurred beneath it, a living watercolor of secrets and ambition. Ethan hadn't moved in hours. He sat at his desk. The name Lina Santos scribbled again and again on a notepad. Every instinct screamed that she was the same woman. The voice, the eyes, the quiet pain that slipped through her smile. But what he couldn't understand was why she'd lied. Across town, Lina's apartment felt smaller than usual. Noah was asleep on the couch, clutching his little blue blanket. His drawings were still taped on the wall. Rockets, stars, a messy stick-figure family. One of them had 3 people holding hands. She stared at that drawing until her chest ached. Her phone buzzed. Talia. Talia, you owe me an apology, Lina. For what? Talia, for trying to make me look bad in front of the CEO. You think he's impressed by your sad single mom story? Lina, leave me alone. Talia, careful, Lina. Secrets don't stay buried forever. Especially not when someone's watching. The message hit like a bullet. She turned off her phone and buried her face in her hands. The next morning at Lumen, Ethan had called an emergency meeting with the marketing team. Effective immediately, he said. Talia will be transferred to the Hong Kong division. Lina Santos will take over as acting manager. Talia's face went pale. Sir, that's final, Ethan interrupted. His tone was ice. Lina froze. Mr. Cole. I can't. You can, he said quietly. And you will, as everyone left. Talia brushed past her, whispering venom. Enjoy it while it lasts. You won't survive a month in his world. Lina tried to smile. But the unease settled in her stomach. Later that evening, she stayed late to finish reports. The building was silent except for the hum of the lights and the rhythmic tapping of rain outside. She didn't hear the elevator until the doors opened. Ethan stepped out, loosened his tie, and leaned against the doorframe. Still here? I could ask you the same, she said softly. He smiled faintly. Touché. They stood in silence for a moment, two ghosts from different worlds, bound by a night neither could forget. Finally, he said. You know, I used to think about you. Her heart stumbled. About me? The woman who saved my life, he murmured. I used to imagine who she was, what she looked like, whether she was happy. Lina forced a steady breath. Why tell me this? Because you remind me of her. Her throat tightened. Maybe you're just projecting. He stepped closer. Or maybe you're still lying. Her eyes darted away. I don't know what you're talking about, don't you? His voice dropped, gentle but sure. Lina, it's you, isn't it? The air between them pulsed. Her chest rose and fell in shaky rhythm. Don't lie to me, he whispered. I saw it in your eyes the moment you walked into that room. Tears threatened to spill. Why does it matter now? Because I owe you my life, he said. And because I never forgot you, for a moment. Silence filled the room, thick with everything unsaid. Then she whispered, Ethan, please don't. She turned and hurried out before he could answer. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He searched the archives, digging through old hospital reports, media clippings, anything. There it was. The original police record from 8 years ago. Unidentified woman rescued CEO from river before disappearing. He traced the grainy CCTV still with his thumb. Even in the poor lighting he could see her outline. The way her hair clung to her face. It was her, meanwhile. Talia was busy with her own revenge. She had been the one who discovered Lina's past. The diner job, the mysterious pregnancy, the falsified address records. And now she had proof. That night she emailed the HR director. Urgent. Employee falsified information and concealed maternity. Possible corporate liability. The next morning, Lina was summoned. HR's tone was clinical. Miss Santos. Your employment is under review pending investigation into your background. Please clear your desk until further notice. The world tilted. What? No, this isn't someone set me up. But the HR rep's eyes were cold. We'll contact you after Mr. Cole reviews the file. Lina walked out in a daze, clutching her things, tears threatening to spill. When Ethan found out hours later, fury ripped through him. Who authorized this? He demanded. HR, sir, based on evidence from an internal source. Bring me the file. He flipped it open and froze. Inside were photos, records, and a single birth certificate. Father. Unknown. Child, Noah Santos, age 8. His hands trembled. The date, the timeline, 8 years ago. He didn't move for a long moment, then, in a whisper that felt like thunder, he said, It's mine. That night. Rain lashed the city again. Lina sat on the edge of her bed. Noah sleeping in the next room, her phone buzzing with unknown numbers she ignored. A knock on the door startled her. She opened it. And there he was. Soaked, breathless, eyes wild. Why didn't you tell me? He demanded. She froze. Ethan, you shouldn't be here. You hid him from me. His voice cracked. 8 years, Lina. Her eyes filled. I had to. You were a CEO. I was nothing. I didn't want him to grow up thinking he was someone's mistake. He stepped closer. He's not a mistake. He's my son. The words hung between them, raw and trembling. She sank to the floor, sobbing. I didn't know how to tell you. Ethan knelt beside her, his voice breaking. Then tell me now. Tell me, I'm forgiven for not finding you sooner. She looked up, tears streaking her face. You saved me first, remember? Maybe this was how fate returned the favor. If you were Lina, would you have told Ethan the truth sooner? Or protected your child the same way she did? Comment below. Sometimes silence is love in disguise. The city outside was still drenched from the storm when dawn crept through the blinds. Lina woke to the faint sound of Noah's laughter in the next room. For a fleeting second, she forgot everything. The firing, the confrontation, the night Ethan had shown up at her door. Then the memory flooded back, leaving her breathless. She stepped into the kitchen to find Ethan sitting at the table with Noah, both of them hunched over a bowl of cereal. Noah was mid-story, arms flailing dramatically. And then my rocket crashed into the moon. But it was okay because the moon had ice cream. Ethan chuckled. Eyes soft. That's a solid backup plan. Lina froze in the doorway, her heart twisting. It was such an ordinary scene, yet extraordinary in its quietness. Her son, laughing, Ethan, smiling in a way she hadn't seen since the bridge. It felt like something sacred had cracked open. Morning, Ethan said gently, noticing her. He insisted I stay for breakfast. Noah looked up, grinning. Mummy, Mr. Ethan says he can build rockets too. She smiled faintly. I'll bet he can. Ethan's gaze lingered on her, full of unspoken apology. We need to talk. Later. When Noah was off to school, they sat together on the couch. Two people surrounded by ghosts of their pasts. I'm sorry, Ethan said quietly, for not finding you. For not being there. She shook her head. You couldn't have known. I should have looked harder, he said, voice breaking. I thought you died, Lina. Her throat tightened. I almost did. He looked at her sharply. She sighed, finally letting the truth fall. That night, before the bridge, I was ready to end it. I thought the world was better off without me. And then you fell, literally out of the sky. Saving you gave me a reason to stay. He exhaled, eyes glistening. So we saved each other. A faint smile touched her lips. I guess we did. They sat in silence, the air thick with everything they'd never said. Then Ethan whispered, Let me help you now. She looked away. Help me? You mean take over my life? No, he said softly. I mean be part of it. Days passed. Ethan returned often, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just to see Noah. The boy quickly grew attached, unaware of the truth that lingered behind every smile. He'd greet Ethan at the door with his drawings, tug at his sleeve, and call him Mr. Rocketman. Each time, Ethan's heart squeezed tighter. He'd never known this kind of love. Simple, chaotic, unconditional. One evening, after dinner, Ethan stayed to help clean up. Lina wiped the counter while he dried dishes. The domesticity of it all felt surreal. Feels weird, she said with a soft laugh. You, the CEO. Washing plates. I needed the promotion, he teased. She rolled her eyes. You're impossible, persistent, he corrected. They stood there for a moment, laughter fading into quiet comfort, the kind of silence that doesn't hurt anymore. Then, softly, Ethan said, You look happy. I am, she admitted. I just didn't expect it to come from this. He nodded. Neither did I, but the world outside didn't stay still for long. Rumors began to spread, photos of Ethan leaving Lina's apartment, gossip in the company about the CEO's new affair. Talia, even from Hong Kong, fueled it, sending anonymous leaks to tabloids within days. Headlines blared, Ethan Cole's mystery woman. Single mother ex-employee linked to CEO. The story exploded. Lina's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Ethan's mother was livid. You've humiliated us, she hissed in the boardroom. You're throwing away our family's reputation for some girl. She's not some girl, Ethan shot back. She's the woman who saved my life. Eleanor's voice turned cold. Then maybe she should have let you drown. The silence that followed was knife-sharp. He stood abruptly. If that's how you see love, Mother, maybe you never understood what it means to be alive. That night, Ethan went back to Lina's apartment, exhausted but determined. They know, she said before he could speak. The whole city knows, he nodded. Let them. Her voice trembled. You don't understand. This could ruin everything. You'll lose your position, your name. Lina. He interrupted gently. You and Noah are my everything now. The rest is just noise. Tears filled her eyes. You can't mean that. He smiled faintly. You saved me twice, once from the water, and now from myself. Her defenses broke. She stepped closer, resting her forehead against his chest. Ethan. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away a tear. You've carried the world alone for too long. Let me carry some of it with you. And this time, she didn't pull away, for the first time in years. Lina allowed herself to feel something other than fear. They talked for hours about the bridge, the pregnancy, the loneliness, the dreams they'd both buried. When she finally fell asleep on the couch beside him, his arm around her, Ethan stared at the ceiling and whispered, Thank you, fate, for not letting her fall that night. Do you believe two broken people can truly heal each other? Or do they just find new ways to carry the cracks? Share your thoughts below. Love stories like Lina and Ethan's remind us that healing often starts with being seen. It happened 3 weeks later. Everything had been peaceful, almost too peaceful. Lina had started to smile more. Noah's laughter filled the small apartment again. Ethan seemed lighter, freer. They were beginning to feel like a family. But peace has a way of shattering when the past refuses to stay buried. Monday morning, Lina arrived at work early. Clutching a coffee in one hand, humming softly to herself. She was due to sign a permanent reinstatement contract. Ethan had fought for her return, and a full-time promotion. But as soon as she stepped through the doors, the atmosphere felt wrong. Whispers followed her. Cold stares. The security guard wouldn't meet her eyes. Miss Santos, said the HR director gravely. Mr. Cole has requested your presence in his office. Her stomach sank. Is something wrong? He didn't answer. Ethan was already waiting when she entered, his expression unreadable. A printed document lay open on the desk between them. What is this? She asked, heart pounding. He looked at her for a long moment. You tell me. She picked up the document. It was an email sent from her work account. 2. Competitor company at email. Com subject. Lumen campaign data. CRNF deal attached were internal design files, statistics, everything. I didn't send this, Lina said, her voice shaking. I swear to you. It came from your account, Ethan snapped. Louder than he meant to. She flinched. He rubbed his temples, voice softening. I want to believe you, God. I do. But the board already saw this, my mother. She's calling for a full investigation. They think you leaked it for money. Tears welled up in her eyes. You know me, Ethan. Do you really think I'd risk everything? Risk you? He turned away, his silence heavier than any accusation. I don't know what to think right now, he said quietly. Those words hit her harder than a scream. That evening, she was escorted out of the building. No explanation. No chance to defend herself. Just a box of belongings and the weight of humiliation pressing down on her shoulders. Ethan watched from his office window, guilt gnawing at his chest. Every instinct told him she was innocent, but every piece of evidence said otherwise. His mother's voice echoed in his head. She's using you. Open your eyes before she destroys everything. He sank into his chair, staring at the skyline. God, what if I've already destroyed her? At home, Lina tried to hold herself together for Noah. She forced a smile, pretending the tears in her eyes were just from the cold. But when Noah asked, Mommy, is Mr. Ethan still coming over tonight? She couldn't answer. She went to her room, shut the door, and finally let herself break. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Talia. Told you I'd win. Should have stayed in your lane? Oh. And don't bother calling Ethan. He won't believe you anymore. Lina's knees buckled. It was her, Talia. The betrayal was complete. She wanted to scream, but instead she whispered, You don't get to take my peace again. Meanwhile, Ethan began to dig deeper. Something about the evidence bothered him. The timestamp on the email didn't match Lina's login history. There were inconsistencies, small but glaring to someone who wanted the truth. He called IT, ordered a forensic review, and within hours, the truth emerged. The email had been sent through a VPN located in Hong Kong. Talia, Ethan's heart dropped. He grabbed his coat and ran out of the office, ignoring his mother's protests. When Lina opened the door that night, she looked exhausted, eyes puffy, face pale. You shouldn't be here, she said flatly. I know everything, Ethan said. Breathless. It wasn't you. It was Talia. She framed you. Lina let out a broken laugh. Of course she did. And now what? You'll fix it? Make a statement. Pretend none of it happened. I'll make it right, he said, stepping closer. Make it right? Her voice cracked. You stood there and watched me walk out like a criminal. You didn't even look at me. Lina. No. She pointed at him, trembling. You said you didn't know what to think. That was enough for me to know where I stood. He tried to speak, but she stepped back, shaking her head. I loved you, Ethan. Even when I shouldn't have. But love means trust. And you never gave me that. He looked shattered. Please, don't do this. Tears streamed down her face. I already did. She closed the door, slowly, painfully. Ethan stood outside in the rain until her lights went out. Days passed in silence. Ethan buried himself in work again. But this time, the empire he built felt like a tomb. The news reported his exoneration of Lina publicly, but she never answered his calls. He tried once to visit her, only to find the apartment empty. She'd moved, no forwarding address gone, again, months later. Noah sat in a park, watching other kids play, his eyes searching every car that passed. Mommy, he said softly, is Mr. Ethan still mad at us? Lina knelt beside him, brushing his hair back. No, sweetheart. He's just far away. Will he come back? She smiled through tears. Maybe, if he remembers where home is. Back in his penthouse. Ethan poured himself a drink, staring out at the rain-soaked skyline. The same bridge in the distance where it all began. He whispered to no one. I remember. Would you forgive someone who doubted you when you needed them most? Drop your thoughts below. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about letting someone back in, but letting yourself move forward. 6 months later, winter had come and gone, and the city wore its early spring sunlight like a fragile apology. Ethan sat in his office staring at the empty chair across from his desk. Every deal, every meeting, every smiling investor blurred into static. He had rebuilt everything. His reputation, his company, his place at the top, and yet, none of it meant a thing. The only thing missing was the only thing that ever mattered. He'd sent letters, texts, even showed up once at her old apartment, only to find the landlord shrugging, moved out months ago, left no address. His mother thought it was for the best. You're free again, she said coldly. But Ethan had never felt less free. That night, he drove aimlessly until he found himself parked near the same bridge where fate first intervened 8 years ago. The river shimmered under the streetlights, and he leaned on the railing, closing his eyes. Why do I always end up here? He murmured. A voice in his mind whispered back. Because this is where you first learned what love costs. Across the city, Lina stood outside a small bookstore cafe, adjusting the open sign. It wasn't much. A humble space filled with old novels and the smell of cinnamon tea. But it was hers. She'd started over again. Just like before. Only this time. She wasn't running. She was rebuilding. Noah was thriving, top of his class. Mischievous and brilliant, and yet, every now and then, she'd catch him looking out the window. His little brow furrowed, thinking about him again. She'd ask softly. He'd nod. Do you miss him too, Mommy? She'd smile sadly. Every day, baby, one rainy afternoon. A sleek car pulled up in front of the bookstore. Lina didn't look up at first. She was shelving books, humming to herself. Then the bell above the door chimed, still hiding in stories to escape real life. A familiar voice said gently. Her breath caught. She turned. And there he was, Ethan. Soaked from the rain, hair slightly longer, a softer look in his eyes than she remembered. Her fingers froze around the book she was holding. You shouldn't be here, he smiled faintly. That's what you said the last time. I meant it then. I mean it now. He stepped closer, voice low. Lina, I didn't come to fix you. Or to fix what I broke. I came because I can't live without knowing if you're okay. She crossed her arms, steady but trembling. You think I'm still that girl who needed saving? He shook his head. No. You're the woman who saved me twice, and walked away both times because I didn't deserve you. Silence. She set the book down slowly. Why now, Ethan? After everything? He exhaled. Because I finally understood something. Love isn't about trust that never breaks. It's about choosing to rebuild it when it does. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't want to shed. You hurt me. I know, he whispered. And I'll spend every day proving I won't again. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a contract, not for business, but for reinstatement, a proposal from his company, offering her full creative control over a new charity campaign. It's not pity, he said before she could speak. It's partnership. You have something this world needs, Lina. Hope. I can't think of anyone better to lead it. She stared at the paper. Then at him. You still don't give up, do you? He smiled faintly. Not when it matters, a small voice interrupted. Mommy. Noah stood at the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes wide as he saw Ethan. Mr. Rocket Man, he exclaimed, running into his arms. Ethan's composure shattered completely. He knelt down, hugging the boy tightly, tears filling his eyes. Hey, buddy. You've grown so much. You came back, Noah said simply. Ethan's voice broke. I promised I'd find my way home. Lina watched them, her heart folding in on itself, for all her fears. This moment was what she'd dreamed of. Her son finally whole, laughter replacing the ache. That evening, after closing the shop, they sat together by the window, the rain tapping softly against the glass. Noah had fallen asleep on the couch, curled up with a comic book. Ethan looked at her quietly. You could tell me to go. And I will, but I'll still wait. However long it takes, she leaned back, gazing at the sleeping boy. You know what the hardest part was? He shook his head. Loving someone who made me feel like I had to disappear to protect the best part of both of us. He swallowed hard. And now? She met his eyes. Now I'm just tired of being afraid. Ethan reached for her hand. Slow and deliberate. Then don't be, not with me. Not anymore, their fingers intertwined. A quiet truce, fragile but real. A week later, they stood together on the bridge again. The wind was gentler this time. The river calmer. Ethan smiled faintly. Seems we always find our way back here. Lina looked down at the water. Maybe because this is where we both stop running. He took a deep breath. I don't know what the future looks like, but if you let me, I want to spend it proving that you and Noah aren't just my past. They're my purpose. Her eyes softened. You really mean that? He nodded. With everything I am. She smiled then, a quiet, hopeful smile that broke the clouds open inside her. When someone who once broke you shows up changed, would you take the risk to love again? Drop your thoughts below. Sometimes love doesn't come back to finish the story. It comes back to write a better ending. The spring rain had given way to sunlight. And for the first time in years, the world felt steady again. Lina stood at the window of her small cafe. Sunlight spilling across the counter where fresh tulips sat in glass jars. She'd always dreamed of owning a place like this. Something warm, alive, filled with stories instead of pain. Noah darted between tables, balancing a tray with 2 mugs of cocoa. Mom, Mr. Ethan's here again. She turned, half smiling. Of course he is. He practically lives here now. Ethan stepped through the door, holding his phone to his ear and waving playfully at Noah. His suit was immaculate, but the man inside it seemed lighter, human. When he ended the call, he met Lina's gaze and grinned. Your son's been teaching me how to make cocoa art. Apparently, I'm terrible. Lina laughed softly. He's honest. I'll give him that. They shared a look that was no longer charged with the tension of the past. Just warmth, forgiveness, and something quietly enduring. That afternoon, they closed the cafe early for a charity event downtown. The first under Lina's creative direction. The theme was New Beginnings, and banners of soft blue and gold fluttered under the spring wind. As she spoke on stage, Ethan stood in the crowd. Noah perched on his shoulders. Her voice was strong, steady. When I started this journey, I thought broken meant worthless, but I learned that sometimes being broken just means you've survived more than most. The crowd applauded. Ethan's chest swelled with pride. When she came down, he whispered. You were incredible, Lina smiled. I was terrified. Good, he said. It means you still care. Later that evening, the 3 of them walked by the river. The same river where fate had first collided their lives 8 years ago. The water shimmered under the golden sky. Noah ran ahead, skipping stones. Mum! Look! The 8th stone bounced 3 times before sinking. That's a record. Ethan laughed, clapping. They stood side by side, watching the boy's reflection ripple. Lina exhaled softly. You ever wonder how much of this was choice? And how much was destiny? Ethan looked at her. Maybe both. Maybe destiny gives us moments. But love is what we do with them. She turned to him, her expression soft but searching. There's something I never told you, he stilled. I know, she blinked. You do? He nodded slowly. About Noah, I've known for a while. The dates, the resemblance. I just didn't know how to ask without scaring you away. Her lips parted, breath trembling. And you're not angry? He shook his head, eyes glistening. How could I be angry about the best thing I never knew I had? Lina covered her mouth with a hand. Tears spilling, Ethan stepped closer, cupping her face gently. You were protecting him, he said softly. And in doing that, you protected the part of me that still believed in something good. She choked on a laugh through tears. You always know what to say, he smiled faintly. Not always, but when it comes to you. I mean every word. Noah came running back. Mommy. Mr. Ethan. Come skip stones with me. Ethan took his hand on one side, Lina on the other. And together, they walked closer to the water's edge. The boy looked up curiously. Mr. Ethan, are you going to marry my mom someday? Lina's cheeks flushed. Noah. Ethan chuckled. Well, that depends on what your mom says. Noah grinned mischievously. I think you should. You already look like a family. Ethan knelt, looking at him gently. We are a family, buddy. Always have been. The boy smiled, satisfied, and ran off again to chase the setting sun. When the sun began to dip low, Ethan reached into his pocket. There's something I've been carrying for a while, he said quietly. He pulled out a small velvet box. Lina froze. Ethan. He opened it, not a flashy diamond, but a simple silver ring shaped like intertwined vines. I didn't buy this to impress you. I got it because it reminded me of you. How you grew through everything that tried to break you. Tears shimmered in her eyes. I don't need promises. He shook his head. It's not a promise. It's a choice. Every day I'll choose you. The woman who saved my life when she didn't even want her own. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the river filled the silence. Then Lina reached out, hands trembling, and whispered, Then let's choose each other. He slipped the ring onto her finger. The wind picked up, lifting her hair, scattering the last petals of spring around them like confetti. And just like that, something deep inside both of them finally exhaled. Years of guilt, pain, and loneliness, dissolving into the quiet certainty of love found again. 1 year later, the cafe had expanded. 2 stories now, with a glass rooftop garden. Photos of smiling customers lined the walls. A small plaque near the door read, For those who thought they'd never be enough, you already are. Ethan walked in carrying Noah on his shoulders. Lina. Guess who passed his swimming test? Noah raised both arms triumphantly. Me. Lina laughed, wiping her hands on her apron before hugging them both. Ethan leaned down and whispered, I booked a weekend trip. Just the 3 of us. Somewhere with no phones. She looked up. You? No phones? He grinned. For you, I'll survive. Noah groaned. No phones. They all burst into laughter. Loud, full, alive, outside. The city pulsed with life. Unaware that inside one small cafe, 3 people who once drifted apart had finally found their way home. That night, as the lights dimmed and the cafe closed, Lina stepped out onto the balcony, Ethan wrapping his arms around her from behind. Still afraid? He murmured against her hair. She smiled. Only of losing what we've built. He kissed her forehead. Then we'll keep building. Brick by brick, heart by heart. Below them, the streetlights reflected off the river. The same water that had witnessed both their despair and their rebirth. Lina whispered, Funny, isn't it? I thought the bridge was where my story ended. Ethan smiled against her shoulder. Turns out, it was just where ours began. Do you believe people can find love even after being completely broken? Comment your thoughts below. Because sometimes, the most beautiful love stories are the ones we almost gave up on.
Thank you for watching all the way through. If this story moved you, the next one will surprise you in ways you won't expect. Go ahead and click the video on your screen. Your next story awaits.